is coming back, if you remember, from a victory against Sertorius. He has already threatened the Senate during that war. Do you remember? He sent that letter where he said, hey, look, you got to give me some money, or my soldiers might just come to Italy if you don't do that, right? So this is a threatening guy, and he's coming back towards Rome with that army. Okay, he's marching back to Rome with that army, and it just so happens that he hears about, right, what Crassus has been doing with the slave revolts. And Pompey and Crassus don't like each other. They had been allies in the Sullan regime, but that doesn't mean they are friends. And right, you learn this about any organization. If you ever get into leadership into any organization, you will, especially a group where there's like a group of leaders, you will learn very quickly that it's not a unified group, right? There are personality conflicts or people that kind of don't like each other. And, you know, publicly, we're all fine. But in reality, there's some real tension. And that's Crassus and Pompey. Something happened, or maybe they had never liked each other, maybe their families, I don't know. Whatever it was, they don't like each other. And so Pompey, go back to spite, Rachel's word spite, Pompey decides that he is going to try to undermine Crassus. So he decides, instead of going straight to Rome, he goes into the south of Italy and he tracks down those 5,000 slaves that Crassus probably doesn't even care about at this point. He's crucified the other slave, he's done. And Pompey goes and he finds those 5,000 slaves and he kills them. And then he says, I won the Third Servile War. Look, I did it. I'm the guy, right? It wasn't Crassus, it was me. And obviously Crassus is like, no, you did not do this. And Pompey says to the Senate, right, and Pompey's got an army, and by the way, Crassus does too. Crassus has got an army too. And so Pompey sends word to the Senate and says, look, I have conquered the slaves, I've conquered Sertorius, I've conquered Marius's loyalists in Africa and Sicily. I deserve a triumph. And Crassus is like, no, I deserve a triumph. I'm the one that killed all these slaves. Of course, you don't really want to give a triumph for a slave revolt because it's not a foreign enemy, right? You should get a triumph for a foreign enemy. So in the end, Pompey is given a triumph on the basis of defeating Spain, subduing Spain. Now, again, he fought a civil war, so it doesn't quite count, but, you know, Pompey's got an army, so what are you going to do? You're going to give him a triumph. And Crassus can't be given a triumph, but instead they give him what's called an ovation. An ovation, ovatio, English ovation, is kind of it's like a triumph, so there's a parade, but you walk, you don't get a chariot, you walk. And it's just some small things that are different, but it's not as much, it's not as prestigious. So both men are honored, but Pompey is honored in a much greater way. And Pompey also, by the way, in addition to triumphing, wants to run for consul. And again, Pompey has not been in the Senate. Pompey has not been quaestor or praetor. He has had no official role in the government whatsoever, and he just wants to be consul. Meanwhile, Crassus, who has actually gone through the right order and the right offices, also wants to be consul. So again, this puts these two, again, into conflict. And the Senate agreed to allow both men to go ahead and run for consul. Pompey explicitly runs on the promise that he is going to undo Sulla's legislation on tribunes of the plebs. Okay, now that is pretty interesting because, right, Pompey is a Sullan, right? Pompey, was a supporter of Sulla. So it goes to tell you that probably that was an alliance of convenience, that it was not the case, right, that Pompey really was a true believer in what Sulla was doing, and he's happy to undo Sulla's constitutional reforms. So they both run for consul on those grounds, and both of them win. So you get, I don't remember who's junior and who's senior, but I don't remember who came in first and who came second, but they both would be consuls, because there's two. And now there's a question of, like, what are these guys going to do? Because they both have armies outside of Rome. And Appian talks about this. Like, the people were really worried that they were just going to fight each other, maybe even on the streets of Rome. Like, you have two consuls now, two armies, two men that hate each other. What's going to happen? And Appian says that Crassus decides to extend the olive branch. Crassus actually walks over to Pompey publicly and extends his hand, right? And Pompey then gets up and is like, okay, I obviously got to go shake his hand. And they go and shake his hand. We had an awkward handshake today. I don't know if you saw it, right, in the White House between Trump and Biden. They talked for like maybe 30 seconds. I mean, it was very, very close, and then that was it, right? Clearly two guys that don't like each other very much. And Crassus and Pompey, right, they reconcile. And they are able to pass some of those reforms that Pompey had promised. So they restore the full power of the tribunes of the plebs. So now we're back in business, right? It used to be the case under Sulla and in the decade after that if you ran for tribune, you were done. You could not take any other office. Anything you proposed had to be approved by the Senate. All that gets lifted. We are back to the situation we had before, right? Which was not a good one. And I don't know what Pompey is thinking. I mean, presumably the idea is he wants popularity. He also doesn't seem to know what he's doing politically, and maybe he just thought this would be something that people would be happy with. I'm not sure why he does it, but it has huge repercussions that he gives the tribunes their power back. The other thing that the two of them do is they restore the equestrian juries on the various corruption courts. So under Sulla, the Senate had been put back into those juries, a monopoly on the juries. And Pompey and Crassus both put the equestrians back, but only at a 2/3 majority. So there's still 1/3 that are senators, but 2/3 are now equestrians in the jury. So it's effectively an equestrian majority at that point. They do more than just that. They bring back the censorship. And I think I may have said this. I can't remember if I did. Under Sulla, the censorship was abolished, right? And the idea here is that we don't want anyone with the power to kick out senators. By the way, Sulla had killed a bunch of senators, so he needs those senators to stay in. He doesn't want them kicked out. So Pompey and Crassus revive the censorship, and with that, there is a purge of the Senate. So 64 senators are removed from the Senate. So not a small number, right? The Senate is 600 men, so 64 of those 600 are immediately kicked out. And then, of course, the other thing that happens, too, is this Italian question that had caused a lot of dissension, and where do we put the Italians, and which tribes, and which other tribes. That all gets resolved as well. Pompey and Crassus issue what is basically kind of a blanket amnesty on the Italian question. So anybody that was suspected to have Roman citizenship that was an Italian just has citizenship at this point. And so we don't know how many people were affected by this, but historians believe that with these Italian citizens put into the rolls officially and permanently, we now have a population in Rome of 900,000 people. So that happens as well. And then Pompey and Crassus finish off their term, and they do one more thing that's unprecedented, which is they decide not to take provinces. This is like, I just cannot think of another example up to this point where consuls did not then go off to take provinces somewhere, because that's the whole point. You want to become rich. For Crassus, I really don't understand it because, Crassus is always looking for a way to make money, and he just doesn't. And I don't know why. For Pompey, it's clear. He has something. He has a deal worked out to kind of get something much better than just a governorship, which I'll talk about after we go to this common question. Yeah, go ahead.
Were there 900,000 people just in the city of Rome?
Yeah, 900,000 just in the city. So we're not talking about Italians, people in Capua, people in other Italian cities. This is the population of Rome. Now, I will say, you probably don't want a long-winded answer. I'll try to be quick. The city does breathe population-wise, so it's not 900,000 all the time. During some parts of the year, these citizens will go out to work in the fields, and Rome it's like Bloomington. You guys don't know this, but I don't hear what I say. Bloomington's very nice in the summer, and not because it's not you guys personally, but IU is the same population as the population of Bloomington. Bloomington has like 40,000 people. IU has 47, right, 1,000 people or something like that. And it, just when all those people leave, it's like, man, you just go to Kroger and you're like right up front in the parking lot. You don't even have to walk at all. It's great. And if you come during the summer sometime, you will notice this, right? If you've been, some of you have been during the summer. It's like a different town. You get the restaurants are all like begging for business, like deep discounts on everything, like buy one get one free everywhere. It's great. So you're missing out a little bit. So come to Bloomington in the summer. It's a different town. You guys are great. I really do. And you pay my salary, so I'm glad that you're here.
Thank you so much for checking out this video. I encourage you, if you'd like to get more free Roman history content, check out my podcast, the Pax Romana Podcast, P-A-X Romana Podcast. It is available anywhere you can find podcasts, so Spotify, Apple Music, all of those places. And if you would, please take a moment to like this video and leave a comment. You can also subscribe to the channel, and all of those things will help boost the channel in the YouTube algorithm. Finally, if you're interested in following me on X, you can do so by looking for me at Prof CPE, P-R-O-F C-P-E. Thanks so much for watching the video. We'll catch you next time.